It is a big deal every time a quarterback is drafted in the first round because it is the start of a new era for the franchise that selected them. And in the 2020 draft class, there were 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round. 3 went in the top 6 picks, and all 3 of those quarterbacks, and Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert, are all Pro Bowl quarterbacks and will play for the team that drafted them for a very long time. But those 3 guys were not the only good quarterbacks to emerge from this draft class. And those 3 guys being good is a rare feat in itself, as more often than not, when there's multiple quarterbacks taken in the top 10, one of those guys will usually not pan out. And the following draft class is a perfect example of that. But 2020 didn't just have 3 good quarterbacks in the top 6. Jordan Love was the other quarterback drafted in the first round, and he looks to be a promising player for the Green Bay Packers, and the Philadelphia Eagles selected MVP candidate Jalen Hurts in the second round. And less than 4 years later, this quarterback draft class is legendary. And we're going to dive into every player and every situation in today's video. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. Joe was the #1 overall pick after a legendary 2019 season with the LSU Tigers, in which he would go on to throw for over 5,600 yards and 60 touchdowns and complete over 76% of his passes. He was a slam dunk #1 pick and was expected to turn the Bengals franchise around. And not surprisingly, given Cincinnati finished with the worst record in the league in 2019, there were a lot of bumps in the road in 2020, and Joe Burrow went down midway through his rookie year with a torn ACL. Heading into 2021, there was a lot of discussion of whether or not the Bengals would take Penei Sewell or Joe's former LSU teammate, wide receiver Jamar Chase. And the Bengals were pretty good at receiver, as they had a solid duo in T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, but adding Jamar to this team put them on another level, and in Jamar's rookie year, or Joe's first full season, they went to the Super Bowl, as Burrow would go on to throw for over 4,600 yards, 34 touchdowns, and win 3 playoff games in the process. And the pressure was on entering 2022, as the question was, could the Bengals go all the way, or could they be figured out? And they made it to the AFC Championship game for the 2nd straight year, and won double-digit games for the 2nd year in a row, and Burrow had his 2nd straight 4,400 plus yard, 34 plus touchdown season. He was rewarded with a 5-year, $275 million contract extension prior to the 2023 season, and while the 2023 season didn't exactly go the Bengals' way, at least with Joe, having your franchise quarterback and #1 receiver in today's NFL is almost a prerequisite for competing for a Super Bowl. It's hard to imagine the Bengals never winning a Super Bowl in the Joe Burrow era, but even in the scenario they don't, they hit on the #1 overall pick and drafted their franchise quarterback for several years to come. Again, I do think Joe Burrow will lead Cincinnati to a Super Bowl title at some point, but in his lone 2 full seasons, he won the Comeback Player of the Year award and finished 4th in MVP voting. And everyone knows entering every postseason, hell, every regular season game for that matter, that nobody wants to play the Cincinnati Bengals, and it starts with Joe Burrow. And the Dolphins went through their fair share of adversity after Tua was selected, and there was a whole controversy of who should play during Tua's rookie season, whether it was him or veteran Ryan Fitzpatrick. But in Tua's 4 years starting, and assuming he will throw at least 1 passing touchdown between now and the end of the regular season, Tua will have 2 3,500 plus yard passing seasons and 2 25 plus passing touchdown seasons, and at the moment, he is in the MVP conversation. Now, admittedly, I don't think Tua will win the MVP this year, but his progression over the past few years has been due to himself, of course, and having one of the best offensive mind we have in football right now in Mike McDaniel. And a true one-of-one weapon in star wide receiver Tyreek Hill doesn't hurt by any means either. Not only that, but Tua's passer rating in 2022 was over 105 in the 13 games he played, and is over 106 in the 12 games he's played in 2023. His completion percentage has shot up to 70% this year, and I would imagine Tua receives a hefty long-term contract extension this offseason. With quarterback contract extensions, and we will get to this even more later in the video, it's more often than not making the quarterback the highest paid until the next quarterback that comes along breaks that contract himself. Joe was given $275 million, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Tua is given $280 over 5 years, and then Trevor would subsequently be given $285, and you get the point. Tua is currently 3rd in the NFL in passing yards, 2nd in the NFL in passing touchdowns, and is 3rd in completion percentage. He's efficient, he makes good reads, and he plays the position like a true point guard, distributing the rock across the gridiron. One thing Tua gets criticized for is his arm strength, but believe it or not, on throws that are 20+ yards down the field, or considered deep throws, this is per PFF by the way, he's tied for the most passing touchdowns in the NFL with 9, and he's 2nd in passing yards and deep throws only behind the Texans' CJ Stroud. One thing is for sure regarding the 2020 quarterback draft class, they come in all shapes and sizes, and out of the quarterbacks in this draft class, almost none of their games resemble each other and they all succeed in their own ways. And in terms of playing style, there is a drastic difference between how Tua plays the quarterback position and how the Chargers' Justin Herbert plays the quarterback position. Herbert was taken the immediate pick after Tua and has had a lot of individual success as the Chargers quarterback over the first 4 years of his career. He threw the most passing touchdowns as a rookie with 31 back in 2020 and would go on to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. Herbert will more than likely start his career with 4 straight 4,000-yard passing seasons and 4 straight 25+ passing touchdown seasons, and to date he is the only quarterback from this class to reach 100 career passing touchdowns. His 2022 season was not the most impressive statistically, at least due to the Herbert standard we are used to, but there was a lot going against him, such as receivers being out for multiple games and himself being injured for multiple games too. Oh, and Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, didn't really do Herbert any favors from a play calling standpoint. As talented as Herbert is, he would go on to finish 23rd in passing yards per attempt, and in 2023, he ranks 18th in this category. Justin's physical tools are off the charts as he can throw the ball a country mile, and granted, he doesn't run the ball as much as another quarterback we will discuss, but he can move when he needs to, and only needs 89 more yards on the year to reach 1,000 career rushing yards, which I think is kind of unexpected from him. The one thing about Justin Herbert is he faces a lot of criticism, and as a Herbert fan myself, it's frustrating because you want to see him do well, but for as talented as some of the players on the Chargers are, there's others that flat out let Justin Herbert down, and of course coaches for that matter too. People look at the career record of 30-31 and use that against him, and basically look at their own quarterback's record and use that as an argument to propel their guy ahead of Herbert, but when Justin is on, there's not many guys in the league that can sling it better than Herbert. With the MVP discussion around players like Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, and hell even Tyreek Hill for that matter, Herbert's season is going really under the radar, and he's currently 8th in passing touchdowns and 9th in passing yards. I don't think Herbert should be in the MVP conversation, of course, but I do think the floor he's set for himself over the past few years has made 2023 go kind of unnoticed, unless it's to dunk on him for throwing a late 4th quarter interception against the Cowboys in what is one of the best defenses in all of football. There's a lot of NFL teams that, if given the chance, would give up a lot of things to have Justin Herbert be their franchise quarterback. Some people may think this is a hair early to discuss Packers quarterback Jordan Love and associate him with the likes of Burrow, Tua, Herbert, and Hurts, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback for a long time, and I think we're just seeing the start of this. It should not come as a surprise the Packers went through a hiccup during the 2023 season, or a bit of a transition period, and here's why. Every skill position player outside of Aaron Jones, who's missed a lot of time in 2023, is in their 4th year or less in the NFL. A.J. Dillon and Josiah DeGuara are the elder statesmen, along with Jordan, who were all drafted in the 2020 class. Romeo Doubs is leading the team in receptions and was drafted in 2022, and Jaden Reed is 2nd in receptions on the team, and he is a rookie. I liked Reed a lot coming out of Michigan State this past year, and I thought he was going to be a solid player with time, but I didn't think he would end up going for 700 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns in his rookie year, which is probably what he will end up with. Christian Watson has had a down 2nd year relative to what he produced during his rookie year, and both tight ends in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft are rookies. So needless to say, there was going to be a lot of learning on the fly, and I really thought the Packers would finish with anywhere from 6 to 8 wins, simply because it's so damn difficult to succeed at the NFL level to begin with, let alone with this many young players. And for Jordan Love to be tied for 5th in passing touchdowns, along with Patrick Mahomes, as we enter the 2nd week of December, certainly says says to me his future is promising and that the Packers are going to be just fine in the long run. Now, it would be asinine to think Love will be what his predecessor in Aaron Rodgers was for the past 15 years, and to expect 4 MVPs is ridiculous for, well, anyone, but in terms of a quarterback being set up for success, I really like what the Packers have done for Jordan. They gave him several young weapons to work with, and in case one of the receivers didn't work out, well, there would be a few others to keep throwing passes to. I like both tight ends they drafted this year in Musgrave and Kraft, and while they may never pad the stat sheet over the next few years, Green Bay will gradually become a team nobody wants to play. And head coach Matt LaFleur is quietly a really good offensive mind and will continue to develop Jordan. Contractually speaking, I have no idea what Green Bay will offer him long term, as he is still under contract through the 2024 season, but after the year he's had, I am guessing Jordan will want to bet on himself so he can receive a contract like his fellow 2020 draftees have. Now, from Green Bay to Philly to discuss Jalen Hurts. There was a lot of controversy when Jalen was drafted back in 2020 for several reasons, but the big one was, of course, how could they do this to then franchise quarterback Carson Wentz? The thought process for Wentz, and this actually lasted several years, was that if he could just get back to the 2017 version of Wentz, he'd be fine, but as we know, that never came. And the other controversial part of this pick had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. The Eagles fan base from the minute Jalen Reagor was drafted absolutely hated the pick, and a lot of Eagles fans were pissed off that Howie basically wasted the first 2 picks of the draft, or so they thought. And 2022 was Jalen's true breakout year, as he would go on to throw for 3,700 yards and 22 touchdowns, and while that may not seem that impressive in today's era, he added an additional 760 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground. And by having a 35 total touchdown season at 24 years old, and leading the Birds to a 14-1 record in games he played, Jalen would go on to finish second in MVP voting, only behind the Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes. And before the 2023 season began, Hurts was compensated with a 5-year, $255 million contract with 180 guaranteed, making him the highest paid player in NFL history, only for Lamar Jackson to surpass that total just 10 days later. Jalen is a very unique weapon, and when the Eagles are playing well, they are one of the best teams in football, and it's due in large part to Jalen. The offensive line, of course, plays a big part, and so does Arthur Juan and Skinny Batman. But a big reason why Jalen is so difficult to defend is you can do everything right defensively and have coverage be as tight as can be, only for Jalen to leak out the backside or even step up into the pocket, and in the process go past the line of scrimmage and pick up 10 or 12 yards. And in 2023, Jalen became the first quarterback to have 3 consecutive seasons with 10 or more rushing touchdowns. Obviously, a lot of those touchdowns can be attributed to the tush push, but that makes it even harder to defend Jalen and the Eagles. It is mentally degrading playing this team, knowing it is 1st and 9 every time you go out there. And because Jalen has rushed for 35 touchdowns over the past 3 years, I would personally be shocked if he ever leads the NFL in any passing category, but that's okay because with Jalen in the gang, the Eagles are going to be competing for Super Bowls for a long time. This pick wasn't the most popular when it was made, but less than 4 years later, Jalen Hurts became the first Philadelphia Eagle to have a no-trade clause in his contract. The 2020 quarterback draft class is truly like no other, and in pretty much every draft class, even the infamous 2004 one with Ben, Eli, and Phillip, there was a player that didn't come close to those guys, and that was the Bills' J.P. Lossman. But with the 2020 draft class, it looks like there's 5 legitimate franchise quarterbacks, and when you have 5 franchise quarterbacks in one draft, there's only one word to describe that class, and that's legendary. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 29% of people watching are subscribed, and is very much appreciated. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.